Live. Great to see you guys again. I'm Rob
Nate,
Heller, owner of the studio here, also game director. And Nate, why don't you give a quick intro too?
yep, Nate Rudichuk, head of operations, making everything operate.
Yeah, that's about right. Helping us with all the day to day. What we thought would be great. We got a number of questions that people have submitted, but we're going to kind of start with just a quick update on where we're at in the progress of development of this game. So, Nate, why don't you take that away?
Yeah, last couple days we saw a major influx of new people, so obviously very encouraging. Really excited about what's kind of coming down the pipeline. For those of you who've been around for quite some time, you saw a bit of a dip in activity. We want to kind of just share a bit of an update about what was going on and kind of where we're headed next. So, first and foremost, we try to have play tests, around once a month. We made the decision earlier on to delay April's play test. We just didn't feel that the progress was enough to showcase to the public. We made a lot of progress on internal things, but again, sometimes it doesn't really translate well to like a final project that you guys can play. With that in mind, we wanted to really invest heavily into the next upcoming playtest, probably sometime around May, late May. So there's a lot of changes that you're going to be seeing. I'm sure Bell, our social media head, will kind of come in here and share it with you guys in Discord along the way. But yeah, with all intent and purposes here, we really just wanted to dive in, turtle up a little bit and spend the time really polishing some stuff. But the feedback's been incredible. So if anybody comes in and sees an old playtest, uh, bear with us. We have some new stuff coming, and it's going to be great. I'm very
So,
excited about it.
sounds great. Let's dive in. What are we answering today?
Cool. So we have a few questions that kind of just popped up, throughout the experience. Let me just pull them up here. Um, Yeah, so the first one here, Christocon, hopefully I'm saying that correctly. Will there be more approaches to realism in combat than just archery? And then he gives an example, or they give an example. The weight you carry slowing you down, so over encumbered, or large objects like spears or backpacks slowing down, dodge rolling, or even preventing it.
It's an interesting idea. I mean, and I appreciate it. We just launched that video last week on redoing our archery and kind of breaking it down for some realism. Um, Melee is really tricky. Our character is young and small, and so we're not going to be doing like an Elden Ring thing where they have the massive hammer and the giant and the great swords and stuff like that. We also aren't going to. We really don't have plans to do things like encumbrance and weight just because we're not trying to create something that's super in depth. We want to try to simplify where we can and just hit the pieces to make the game as fun and as accessible as we can while still being as detailed if we can, if that makes any sense. But ultimately, something like stamina we're looking at, it's still too very early for us to figure out exactly where the combat's going. Just deciding what weapons Red should have has been really tricky because, ultimately, I don't personally think a sword makes a ton of sense. Maybe like a rapier or something, but even then, I'm not sure. But hatchet could work. Knife obviously works. There's spear can work. And so, yeah, if some of our early playtests has this giant, massive spear on her back. It looks kind of silly, but we're experimenting with all of it. So, still too early to tell definitively.
Gonna jump actually to a question from chat. Is the story direction set? Because I think that's a good segue kind of into the complexities that we share and like what we're prioritizing. Rob, maybe you want to touch on the story for a second.
Yeah, I'll give you guys a quick, very quick history on it because ultimately when this game started, when the first ideas came back in early 2024, my intention was sort of to build something like a Last of Us or God of War or Horizon, which is kind of a linear game that's some, I don't want it to be cutscene heavy, but it's got cutscenes and it tells a story and you have some control. What this has evolved to since we brought the team in, we feel is far more exciting. And so much more immersive world where you have a lot more opportunity to go in routes you want. Not exactly open world, though. It's a different approach to that. And so that said, yes, we do have a storyline that's roughly broken into 4 levels with our core villains, one boss for each level, one final boss, twists and turns along the way, great characters along the way as well. But the set order that all of that happens in is not we're starting to open that up more and create more flexibility for our players. But yeah, Nate, why don't you explain a little more?
Yeah, I mean, I think the feeling of the game that we want to give you guys, I think that's pretty set. I think we have a really good idea of what this game, the experience should be like, how we get it done, and the pace that we get it done. Obviously, that's the reality of production. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the story, I think Rob, you've spent a lot of time, and our narrative team has spent a lot of time really harnessing the core story, and I think that's very exciting. What I'm
Yeah.
also really excited about is like the world building in general. So as we go on, we'll expose and talk about more of that, later in the year as well.
Yeah, I can't wait to share when it's time to really get into the world building. But yeah, and villains plural is great to hear. Absolutely, yeah. My original vision was one final boss of each level, and then obviously final to the entire game, and then one mini boss to each level too. We may not be able to hit that many unique encounters, but I'm also comfortable sharing. The overall established villain of the game is the Snow Queen, which not everybody even knows. Like Disney took the Snow Queen, it's a Hans Christian Andersen film, and took her and made her into Elsa for Frozen. It's like a completely different thing. But the real one, she's badass, and she's not necessarily a good person at all. And so since we're paying homage to the original fairy tales, the Snow Queen is the main antagonist of the game. And also we can share that we definitely are going to be putting the troll under the bridge for Billy Goat's Gruff, and hopefully he'll be a big boy, and that'll be a lot of fun too. So yeah, that'll be great. But we got others in the works as well.
Oh, it's going to be great, man. Okay, moving on. Harbinger has asked a few questions, so I'm kind of just going to go one by one here. Um, will the game have multiplayer, co-op, PvP, anything like that, or will it only be one player against AI?
At this time, we are just planning on single player. As a studio, we are absolutely looking to validate co-op and multiplayer options. It may have to be in a future title. As a startup studio, you really have to pick your battles and be lean and mean. You got to launch something, even if it's very small, and you got to prove that you can. And if you can, and people buy it, and it starts to catch on, they'll give you a lot more money to make another one and another one. And so we do have a long-term plan for the studio, and there will be a video on that, but probably not for a little while. But we'll be sharing all that with you guys.
Yeah, just to add on there as well. There's a lot of challenges with each of these things, so we have to pick our battles and get wins where we can, and not overpromise and underdeliver. I think it's better that we release in steps like this, and there's a big roadmap anyways. So tons of time for new ideas. Best thing to do though is to build it openly and test with you guys as often as possible. So you'll see and be a part of that journey along the way.
I'll answer real quick since we just did the story one, the follow up, the
Mhm.
central theme of the story, without giving a ton away. Ultimately, in our version, Red has been been raised by the huntsman that saves her in her tail for about 8 years, learned to hunt and survive in the wilds. And we're trying to build a very gritty and perilous version. Think like Shrek, but like way darker and more dangerous, right? And like of all these fairy tales living together. And then one day, the huntsman essentially disappears, and the quest begins. The whole game begins with Red setting out to find him, to figure out where that is, and that just sets her on this whole path, and which eventually does cross her path with the Snow Queen. That's about all I'm going to say for now, but there's a lot of layers to get to that point.
Yeah, and if I can, Rob, as well, let me just comment on that. What's also really exciting, maybe it's not the central theme of like the game or the story, but the world is kind of it's a living, breathing thing. So you're never the center of it, and I think what the players will really get excited about as well is that there's a lot of depth that you don't have to participate in, you don't have to touch. There's a lot of stories that are kind of happening around you, and how you engage with those stories is going to be really interesting as well.
Yeah,
Things aren't just waiting for you to interact with them; they're existing in their own space as well. So it'll feel really deep that way.
great. What else are we answering here?
Will there be a first person mode? I mean,
No, there will not.
go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a pretty straightforward one. I
easy
did
one.
ask about that myself early on, but Nate quickly explained everything is different when you're in first person. All the textures, all the models, every single aspect. It's not as simple as just changing the camera. And so we're just going to stick with third person again, um, keeping it as we got to pick our battles. That's not one we're going to tackle in this game.
Yeah, if I can give 2 seconds of context as well, on things like architecture, things like doorways or windows, they're always larger in third person because the camera angle is different. So if you were to change that to first person, the risk obviously is that things kind of look weird. They don't look to proportion, and that can kind of be an immersion breaker. And plus, the kind of game that we're building, I don't know, parkour in first person, it could be cool, but I think
Yeah.
that it's better served in third person for us. We
Yeah.
made that decision pretty early.
Parkour is a huge pillar of our game.
Mhm.
And so, and I'm super stoked about that. There will be a video coming out on that too. All about parkour.
Sweet. What is your vision for the finalized combat, both melee and bow combat?
What's your vision, Nate, for finalized combat?
It's gonna be awesome. uh, what's the vision? I think it's gonna be a good balance of risk and reward. I think creativity comes to mind as like the
Yes.
first word that really summarizes everything.
Yeah,
I
that's
can expand
really
on that if you want, or
that's really big. Yeah. I mean, we let's start with what we don't want. We don't want you to just be walking up and then there's just a patrolling enemy and then it sees you and it runs at you and it just attacks you until one of you dies. Like we don't want that. We do want people to be able to figure out the mechanics of the game, maneuvering, how to transition between ranged combat with the bow and melee combat with whatever weapon of choice there, and being able to seamlessly move between the two when you can. That's going to be great. We want you to be able to outsmart your enemies, not just outmaneuver them, but you can do it either way. We've got, like we said, parkour. Red can climb up in the trees, and that opens up more opportunities. So we're trying to bring versatility in there and allow you to play the game the way you want. And stealth first, essentially, because you're going to be scouting things out and figuring out how you want to embrace it. But if we can do other things like environmental things, or even a lot of our enemies, a lot of animals in fairy tales talk, and so maybe you can even dialogue with them in some ways, or taunt them and get them to react in certain ways. It's just we're really trying to push that, and we want the hits. The hits will be savage, that's for sure, and the finishers will be very savage. Not exactly like Hit Girl from Kick-Ass movie, but not far off from that either. So yeah, it should be great.
yeah, there's a few comments here on the chat, but just to add to that, I think if you were to summarize like what the combat feel could be like in terms of game genres,
Mm.
we're gonna have action adventure elements. Obviously, action adventure RPG is our core title. I think we're gonna aim to have some more immersive sim elements as well. So really interesting combinations that you guys can be creative with. Much more impact on that. Obviously, again, these are to be tested, but I think we have a pretty good idea about how important combat is, how important preparing for combat's going to be, and using the environment to help. So, I think it's going to be good. Rob,
Ye-
another question from chat, real quick as well. How do you differentiate your archer-based game from others in the genre?
Very tricky to do. You look at a game like Horizon, right, and the Forbidden West, the sequels and DLC. That has gone under a lot of work from with a lot of money and huge teams to sort of perfect that archery. Or Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom from Zelda. There is a lot of work that goes into that kind of stuff. There's a lot of other examples too of great games. Last of Us 2 had really good archery as well. We are trying to pull from all of that as a baseline and then figure out where we can expand in ways that can make this fun. But I can share a few ideas that we have of, I really like the idea of dipping your bladed weapons or arrow tips in some types of toxins like neurotoxins and hemotoxins and stuff like that that can cause certain things to either erode, dissolve, or to cause some type of secondary damage to your enemies. That opens up a lot of opportunities there too. Different ways there. Different bows. Or maybe you're going to go for a longer, more sniper shot. Maybe you're going to go for a shorter and faster shot. There's lots of ways there, but how we can actually do it, we're just going to have to get the play testers in, just like you guys, so you can come in and tell us what rocks and what needs to be better, and we're going to keep refining till we get there.
Sweet. I'm gonna jump back again into chat. Another question, kind of around fairy tales in general, but how do you manage the underlying messages and symbolism of fairy tales? Are you trying to stay true? Are we trying to stay true to the tales in general? Or are we trying to build on them and incorporate different elements? Just maybe touch on that a bit as well.
Yeah. So here's the crazy thing is that a lot of fairy tales actually do not have, they don't have a symbolism or a message. A lot of them, like maybe half of them, don't. they're literally just there to entertain people. Some of them, so they're wild. Like they'll establish characters and all this stuff, and then they'll just move on to something else. It has nothing to do with the rest of the story, and so we want to pay homage to that as much as we can without it being super chaotic. There are some that do have a point to them and a message. If we can work that in, that's great. But we're not doing anything political. We're not trying to say a message in this game besides that we love what we're doing, and we do want to respect. I'll look up on it and come back to you. There's one fairy tale that you can look up where it's about it's absurd, and then like everyone dies at the end. It's just absolutely crazy. And so, but it's worth a read. We'll see. Whatever it is, we're going to try to stick to the core stories wherever we can.
Yeah, I think the big thing is that we were adding something new to them as well, that we're building on top of it. Staying true to it, doing what we can to build the world around it, but then also providing new experiences and like new ideas that really push that world deeper and deeper and more into like a living, breathing thing. I think that's the biggest challenge that I mean, at least I had looking at this was how do you tie in some of these things together and make it kind of consistent? I don't know if you felt the same way, Rob.
Yeah, I personally love figuring out where in the fairy tale are we coming in? Are we coming in before it, the one that you know? Are we coming in right during it? Or are we coming in way after it? And so you take that with all the different characters that are out there, and you could do a lot of great stuff. But fairy tales are crazy, man. There's like a million princesses and a million kingdoms and a million like everything, and so lots of dragons and craziness. And so we're going to tap into as much as we can.
Cool. I got a bunch more questions also in chat, so I'm just going to keep
Yeah, let's
ripping off
go.
of those for a second. So you said in one of your videos that the game will be a short experience. Are we looking to? I mean, let's just elaborate on that a bit and talk about kind of how this is going to look like
Yep.
composition wise.
Yeah. Look, I started by saying 8 to 12. It may be more like 4 to 7. It depends. We don't know exactly. What we're trying to do is keep it as dense as possible. I mean, obviously, everybody wants a longer experience. If you love the game, we've got to get every piece right. Like, it's so much better to have a tight, wonderful experience that leaves you wanting more than something that is longer and either spread out just for that sake. So, again, to get to the depth that we're trying to in our story and our world between the levels and the factions and the different characters we have, I 6 to 8, maybe 4 to 7, somewhere in that world. But like I said, we got to launch. You got to launch this project because it's do or die. So ultimately, we're going to do whatever size we can that gives the best experience within the resources that we have.
Yeah, just to comment on that as well. We're talking about the main story, not necessarily like total gameplay hours.
Yes.
The plan here is that we release a very tight experience that has a really great storyline that allows you to get involved, but the actual gameplay itself has a lot of replayability to it. So the plan would be that if people love the world and they want to get involved in it, especially one of our kind of core points here is that the world will be adaptive to some degree. So you get to change the experience, you get to really feel that you're in like a living, breathing system that you can impact. And obviously, there's a lot of replay value there. So we think that you could easily get 40 hours with like the core loops and everything.
Yes.
Once it's fully built.
Yeah, if you love the game and you want to keep replaying, like, and you're replaying to experience it all, because like we said, remember, you can go through as stealth. You can be the assassin. You can be a killer. You can be a pacifist in our game. Like, we're looking at that stuff, and so if you want to go all those different routes, then there will be far, far more than what I'm talking about. I was just talking about the core story. You're right. Yep.
Yeah, and like just to add on this because I think it's a really important topic that we should talk more about in the future. But think about this, picture this, right? You're fighting a bunch of bandits in a camp or something, and you decide to let one of them go. What happens next? Does the world remember that? Do they remember that you were merciful or that you weren't? And is there a consequence to that? So I think that adaptability and that immersiveness will be really interesting because you kind of get to create your own scenarios and tell your own story in this game. So that's where we see a lot of replay value coming in as well. It's like, well, what happens if I do this instead of that? Try it again and see, right? There's tons of ways to experience that.
That's it. Yep.
Awesome. A couple other ones from chat. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you. Go ahead.
Yeah. What's your philosophy behind level or environment design? Is it linear, more open-ended? I think that's a good.
Why don't you take that one? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. We're kind of doing a semi-open world, so it's a bit of both. I think Rob, one of the challenges that you brought up, rightly so, is that like it's also really hard to do an open world fully, and sometimes it's actually not as good because we're trying to cram in stuff for like content's sake, grind. What's really exciting about this is that we have levels, so we can kind of package things in like a really cool experience. But I like to personally refer to them as jungle gyms. So it's not a linear experience. You can kind of do things in the level and go your own way. You can spend as much or as little time as you want, but obviously it's not as free form as an open world. So there will be gates that you have to pass through story completion. And I think that that's a really good system too, because if you want to pick it up for an hour, you can. If you want to put it down after that, at least you get something really valuable in that experience as well.
Yeah, we just had a 15-20 minute discussion this morning out of nowhere about whether or not you should see handheld pieces on rocks like for that you're climbing versus blending them in and how if you think about it, it's like, oh, just do whatever, but you can't, because if it's semi-open world, you do need barriers in that world. So what, you can climb those but not others, and or vice versa. So it's tricky. We're working on it.
I'll do one last one from chat and then I'll jump back into the general questions. But
Sure.
Yvonne asks, what's your approach with social media? Are you planning to continue sharing every step and the process in general? Maybe you want to talk about that for a second.
Hell yeah. Yeah,
Hell yeah.
absolutely. I mean, look,
Yeah.
no one knows us. No one knows who we are. That's it. Like, everyone knows the big studios. So how would anyone know us if we just sat and locked everything up in stealth mode for 2 years plus in developing this? That's my whole thing. You see, especially go back to the earliest videos that we put on YouTube. It's like, we just open ourselves up. Like, go ahead, take a shot. Like, I'm talking about all this grandiose stuff, just talking about it, right? And even another guy made a whole video like making fun of me for talking about it, which was hilarious. But the thing is that what else would you do? And so we believe that honestly, starting now and even last year, leading up, it's gonna be such a head start on everything else. And we can always, if we reveal any secrets, then we can either get rid of the videos later when we are well known or something like that. And so I'm all about sharing a bunch. There are a few story secrets and things like that and twists that I really want to keep close to the chest. But yeah, you will see more and more and more, especially now that we've got our updated and new concept art team. There's going to be some awesome stuff coming your way, and as well as some of the 3D work that gets going. But it's all in development right now.
Just a comment on something also in chat. I said I wouldn't, but the Nemesis system. So Shadow of Mordor, yes, they do have a patent on it, as everybody rightly knows. There are ways to kind of create something better or
Absolutely.
something different. We're not going to be infringing on that, obviously, but they don't own the concept of impactful world. So the way that they're doing it is unique. But we looked at this and we kind of looked and said, we're not going to do the same thing anyways. So it's very, very specific, and I think there's way better systems that we can build. We're kind of focusing on that as a core offering in our technology. So we have a lot of people that are thinking about that often and designing and developing cool tech.
We've got excellent legal counsel as well that has experience in the game industry. So yeah, we know where the lines are. That's part of my history too as a CEO in my other business. So yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, moving back into our questions list. What is your vision for? Or sorry, my bad. Will there be magic combat? It's like spells, magical staffs,
magic combat. I'm going to just actually say no to that one. Our world is more like a soft magic, system. So you think of like Lord of the Rings and like Gandalf and that. You're not going to be conjuring fire and ice and things like that, but there are magical items. There's like 7 league boots in some fairy tales that allow people to move super fast or maybe even jump super high. There's things like that we might be able to do, shape shifting, but not directly into combat. There's also magical types of wood and different herbs and different like resources in this, and powders and sap and things like that. So it will be ever present, but it's not going to be like fire, ice, and wind and the elements and zapping people with lightning bolts and that kind of stuff. You're going to have to use your wits and your weapons to get through.
Yeah, if I could add on that really quick as well, because what you mentioned there with like soft magic influencing kind of the world, how does it change different kinds of materials? That's actually one of the core focuses that we had in our world building in general. to look at one of the better success stories of this, I think looking at the Fallout series for how they looked at their world building, where it was like 1950s nuclear age technology, and then you kind of diverge and expand on that, and you create an alternate history. We've kind of done the same thing with this technology. Like if Magic gave you perpetual motion or like a new fuel source or a new type of weapon or something, what would happen if like a society ran on that for a bit, or what would happen to regular everyday things if it was altered that way? And so that kind of magic allows us to really create something unique and try to create different kinds of worlds and experiences that are like are ours, that look like a Tail's Edge game. So it's actually really powerful, I think, to have magic that's a little bit more thoughtful and deeper integrated into the world.
Yeah, there's stuff like I said, like special type of trees and woods in our world that
Yeah.
um that could be built. Some of them are built into like a wheel, and if you spin it, it will spin perpetually and things like that. So what can that do, right? And that's where our team is really starting to run wild, like in taking this opportunity and innovating with it.
Okay, going back to chat because there's a great question. Additive Outlier, you've been incredible with this. Steam page, when is it coming up?
Ooh, pretty soon, real soon. We changed our legal entity status, which caused us a little bit of a delay. But I believe we are super close, Nate. I think once everything's locked out there, we could literally just be a few weeks away. So
Yeah.
we'll say that. Don't 100% hold me to that, but we're working on our Steam page art. We have been all of that stuff. Like as soon as we get there, it's going to be a lot easier for people to play test our game, and all of that, which is kind of and potentially even wish list if they want as well, which would be great.
Yeah, apologies to some of the people commenting on the delays. So, just for some perspective, it's a personal drive link that I have to manually accept for everybody. So, I'll get requests at like 3 in the morning, and I can't be on my phone all the time. So, Steam kind of solves all that. We're real close, and I'm really excited, Rob. There's some really cool content that's coming around that release as well. So, I know that
And
we've been working hard on that.
also right around the corner is our teaser trailer, which is about
Yeah.
90 seconds, and it is cinematic, but so it's not like a gameplay, like real gameplay in that, but it really sets the tone for our story and the adventure and what happens. So we're hyped to share that. Our team's been kicking ass on building that whole thing out.
And yeah, like I mean, what's going to come to on Steam? You can actually playtest early access games. Not even early access, sorry, just like playtest games in general. So we'll do everything through that for those who haven't had a chance to yet. It'll be much easier to download. Okay, moving on. So, what feature has your team enjoyed playing with or creating the most? That's a great question. Dylan asked that one.
I love Dylan. Dylan, he asks great
Yeah.
questions. Yeah, why don't you? What about you right now, Nate?
Oh boy. You know what? Honestly, it's a tough one. I'm a little bit biased to some of the I would say it's not a feature, it's more like the world building to me has been really exciting. Just the conversations I've had with everybody, super cool, super fun. But I would say honestly, like what I'm most excited about is the AI. Um, Sandra, one of our devs, and Mike, another technical leader here, we've been spending a lot of time just talking about like what could go right in this world with like adaptive systems, with really interesting smart AI, like how to expand enemy types, all that stuff. And some of our designers as well have started to have those conversations. So I think that has immense potential to be really unique. And it's hard. It's very hard. It's like a lot of long meetings and taxing on my
Yeah.
social battery, but I love talking about it. It's just it gets me fired up every time.
And quick shout out to you see Yvonne Kultovich and Andy Walsh in the chat here. Those are our
Oh
two
yeah,
lead concept artists, and great to see you guys active here as well. Um,
crushing it.
what's got me most excited? I mean, when I first saw the very first prototype clip of Red parkouring, climbing up trees, and then jumping from branch to branch, and then as I saw that evolve and where we're going with it, and like there's something we call pillaring, where she if you run to like if you're on a branch and you run towards the trunk, she can grab it and spin around it and keep going, and like all of that movement is so fluid, and like once it's really nailed down, it's going to be extremely special. And what you'll be able to do with that parkour in combat and out of combat should be a ton of fun. So personally, that's one. And when our level designers get to really play with that and figure out how you can get to hard to reach places and innovatively use all of her movements. It's going to be just awesome.
Yeah, we have a bit of an art. We call it an art gym internally, but effectively it's a bunch of assets that you can climb around. We're testing to see how they look, and then if you can actually do that without it completely bugging out. That's a test that we're doing tomorrow, I think. And it's been really exciting to see like the environment team take these really gorgeous assets like rocks, trees, something that's simple but really shapes like how the world's experienced. It's been exciting to see that, and I'm really stoked to hopefully very soon share that with like people. Right, we can get this out to the community and start to test in the next play test like a world that actually has more final art assets that you can parkour on.
There are
Super cool.
enthusiasts that on YouTube that post where they break down every parkour in every Assassin's Creed and what was the best ones and why it works. And just so you guys know, we're listening to all of them. So we're able to build our own system here, and we've been working on it. And I can't wait till that is ready to share.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and also we have people from Ubisoft that have worked
That
on
helps
some of
too.
these games.
We do have
Yeah.
people from Ubisoft that have worked on several Assassin's Creed games. You're right.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I'm gonna move on here. This is a shot in the dark. My German is a little bit rusty. Shaft Knoodler. Um, he, I don't know. They ask, why doesn't the protagonist have her hood on? Wouldn't that look better during the gameplay? Uh, or are we trying to make this weather specific? And then there's kind of a bunch of questions here. Or do we not want to make it look like Assassin's Creed? So, Rob,
Yeah.
long
Yeah.
story short, what's with the hood?
Yeah, we've done it. We had it both ways. It was I wanted you to be able to put it on and off. I'm really campaigning hard to have a button to do that, even though buttons are a lot of real estate on a controller. But the idea is that there's something just personal about being able to do that, and maybe we can even change dialogue options with it up or down. But you should be able to control that. And it might be also if you have it up and she does a roll, you might stand up and it's down. Like it's just little details like that make a big difference. But I opted to keep it down for now because we want to see her face and her hair as we want to see her character's face. Like most of the camera's from behind, so you just see more red in that sense. So that's it. But yeah, we will have it. You'll have that control. We'll probably have an armor set or a clothing set that will be like very much the traditional Red Riding hood at some point in our game if you want it. But otherwise, yeah, we're evolving that too.
Great answer. Will there be plans for omnidirectional combat? Like where you look, your attack will go.
Yeah, why don't you take that one?
Yeah, I think to some degree. I mean, I don't think we're trying to reinvent the wheel on some of this stuff. To be honest with you, I don't know how much is going to change. We're in the middle of making some adjustments to what we call the so we're doing something called the encounter loop right now, which is just the core demo that we're going to be, or the core test that we're going to be showing off, hopefully in late May. And one of those parts is what we would call the engage part of that loop, and so that's like the direct combat when you're fighting. I know that our design team has some ideas on how that's going to look, so I don't want to jump the gun and put words in anybody's mouth because I don't know. But from our last conversation and what we had before, I think we're just going to try to do something that's really tight, really well designed. So it's kind of a non-answer, but I think that's the best I can do right now, Rob.
No, that's fine too. And so I see here from Svizi asking, what will be the first tale that you will include in the game and why? Besides the obvious, right, of Red Riding Hood in that sense. Maybe not the first because it's going to depend on how you play a little bit, but one of the earliest ones will be, it's called The Musician. And so there's a tale where he's a fiddle player in the actual one. I think we may change the instrument here, but he will be a recurring character in our game, and he's very quirky. And in that, he's an absolute asshole to these animals in the forest. They hear him play, and then they go, teach me how to play, and he goes, sure. And then he like traps them in trees and gets their faces wedged into like hard to like get out positions. It's just he's kind of a scumbag, and so we're gonna have a lot of fun with that too. But he will probably be one of the earliest ones that you can run into in the game.
He's got a nice cape, that's for sure.
I want to point out too. Yeah, he's got a good cape.
Oh yeah.
The other thing is that because there's so many tales, if you think about it, there's only so many that are like the ones that everyone knows, right? So like Hansel and Gretel and Cinderella and Snow White and Sleeping Beauty and like Pinocchio and like all of those. So if you think about it, you could cram them all into one game, but you do want to spread a little bit out. And that's why, so that we have legs to keep going. And you also want to be able to have time to elaborate, like Rumpelstiltskin, something like that. So we're picking the right ones to play with, but there's going to be a mix of a lot of deep cut and obscure stuff for anyone that even like wants to go into the lore and start digging. They'll be satisfied to see that we paid homage to that. But then there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a couple of big mainstream ones too that everybody knows.
Yeah, perfect. The last one I have on this list, at least, will be dodging. So specifically, dodging or hitting the Alt key on keyboard when in the trees. Have we thought about changing that so you don't fall out of the trees right away?
Yeah, that's feedback comes in from our team player or from our playtesters, which you all are welcome to playtest this game as well. Feedback comes in. We want to correct that. We don't want accidental movement. Side note: in the very beginning, we had it so you could just hold. I think it was shift, and she would just hit forward, and she would just run to everything, climb everything. It was like an auto parkour. And then we were like, well, we should put something in here. So like give them a little bit of effort. So we're experimenting with that, but we don't want anything that's tedious or annoying if we can avoid it. And yeah, and thank you, Atlas Theory, for the shout out too on, calling out supporting what we're doing here in building out in the open. It's authentic, and that's what makes it awesome. No one else can take that from us, which is cool.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, ultimately, like, for example, the test that we're doing or that's coming up in May, it'll kind of serve to answer a lot of these questions, or at least like test if things are working or not. We did a bit of a movement overhaul, or like programmatically, there were some things that need to be tweaked. And again, a lot of these art assets that we now have, if you've played some of the previous play tests, like some of the trees look pretty busted, pretty janky, pretty bare bones. That was obviously on purpose. We have some really interesting looking trees now, so once we get all that into one gym that we can pretty much try to break as fast as possible, we'll see what feels right. And obviously, again, your feedback on this kind of stuff will really help too, because we don't fully know the answers to all these controls. The answer is usually like, it depends, maybe not. We'll see how it really feels all in all. So, time will tell, I guess.
Great. Yeah.
And then I think the last question, sorry, just on the chat here. There's some cool ideas that are being pitched for getting sucked into a magic storybook.
Oh
And
yeah.
then we have some interesting stuff on Steam tags, but maybe you want to talk about stylization maybe a bit. We could talk about that.
I think someone had asked about the art style too at some point, but yeah, sure. What we're trying to do here, we're trying to make it as immersive as possible. So in a way, you're already kind of sucked into the storybook with what's here. So we don't really have plans to do that and then bring it to a full illustrated version, at least for this. But we want it so that you're encouraged to go and explore and to talk to people and we want some depth of conversation and figure out how you want to play that game. So, but that's about it. As far as the stylization is concerned, we will have a video really going into that in the visuals. We started maybe a little too realistic, a little hyper realistic. We don't want Red to look like Ellie from Last of Us. We want to have the right amount there, and so our amazing concept artists are helping us really figure out where that line is, and I'm very excited about it. And so it will be stylized enough, but we want it so that you can look at it and it'll feel like a Red 16 game, but not ultra stylized and cartoonish.
Yeah, new benchmark coming anyways, so I think we have a good idea where we want to land. Just time will tell, and we'll be sharing that with everybody when the time comes.
Cool.
Still some more stuff, so I can keep going here, and Rob, we can cut this off anytime. But specifically around tales equaling campaigns, which is really interesting. Gamer is referencing Battlefield 1, so maybe we want to talk about the structuring a little bit.
Yeah, I don't want to go into too much detail on that, but yeah, I think we have sort of campaign piece. It's really interesting. We're not there yet, ultimately. We are looking at some side quest pieces and things like that. So there will be some some are overlapped and interwoven. Some are going to be unique and isolated. But I got to leave it there for now. We don't have a solid answer otherwise.
We would just be speculating, but
Yeah.
time will tell. Time will tell. That's all I have, at least on my list of questions, Rob. But yeah, maybe we
Yeah.
want to just wrap this up and finalize it. What do you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give a quick address to a few more ones that are in chat here. Steam tags, we'll get back to you on that as far as what works. And then, yeah, realistic archery in a medieval setting. That's definitely what we're after. Yeah, so we want to find our own magic there, and all that should be good. So, and then you got one more question from what I understand. It seems like tails equals. Yeah, sorry, that was the campaign one. So.
Yeah.
How are we from a vertical slice in a demo? How far? Too far, in my opinion. Again, we're moving as fast as we can. So we're not super far, but we are not there yet. We really want to figure out that core gameplay loop. And if we nail it, then it's time. Or when we nail it, it'll be time to go. But we don't know exactly. And that's why we're inviting everyone to keep joining our dev club and playtest this game. And as soon as we have the Steam page live, which should be honestly within the next few weeks, then that'll be much easier for people to do that, give their feedback so that we can nail that. And once we do, it's just going to keep going and going and going. We've done a lot of prep work in the last year and a lot of stuff that's going to allow us to take off when full production starts.
Yeah, big thing on the vertical slice thing as well. I think we should separate vertical slice and demo. They're two different things, or at least they should be. I would say that our vertical slice is starting, honestly, as early as May, late May. Certainly at the end of this milestone, we should have a really good idea of how the experience is going to feel, even if it's very, very limited. In terms of a demo, that'll be closer to launch because obviously we'll polish it up and prepare kind of a little access point into this game. But yeah, the vertical slice is something that you guys will kind of see periodically improve and grow as we keep playtesting it. But we really think that it'll be as early potentially as May, and hopefully really really solidified around like June-ish at the end of this milestone.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys are welcome to come to the Discord if you're not there already. And how often will we do Q&As? As soon as every 2 weeks, but probably every 2 to 4, somewhere in that world. So we're gonna keep striving to push builds out monthly and just keep posting cool stuff. We've got great stuff in the works. That last archery video gave us some great traction and got out there. The algorithm picked it up, which was lovely. And we've got more coming. So lots to talk about. So guys, thank you, Nate, as always, for your candor. Thank you to our team members that have been lurking in chat here nicely and supporting us all. And we'll catch you guys on the next one or on the Discord server.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. All right, that's it.
We're good. Beautiful. Oh.